The grand hall of the Galactic Assembly hummed with energy, a kaleidoscope of alien forms filling the space. Representatives from countless civilizations sat in their assigned places, some with bioluminescent tendrils twitching, others with segmented exoskeletons glinting under the artificial starlight. At the center of it all stood the Thalzar emissary, towering over the other delegates, their crimson scales catching the light as they spoke. "We are the Thalzar," the emissary declared, their voice a guttural rumble that seemed to resonate through the walls. "The strongest species in the known universe. Our dominance is unrivaled. Those who have dared to challenge us now sing praises in defeat, or lie silent in ruin." There was a murmur among the assembly, a mix of awe and unease. The Thalzar's reputation was not exaggerated, their empire spanned hundreds of systems, built on the shattered remains of those who had opposed them. The emissary's golden eyes swept the room before landing on a figure seated at a modest station, humanity's representative. Unlike the imposing Thalzar, the human diplomat was unremarkable in appearance, clad in simple formal attire. Yet there was a quiet confidence in the way they sat, hands folded calmly on the table. "Humans," the emissary spat, as if tasting the word for the first time. "You are newcomers to this assembly. Unproven. Fragile. We offer you a chance to demonstrate your worth, or to accept your rightful place beneath us." The murmur grew louder. Other delegates leaned forward, intrigued. Humanity had only recently joined the interstellar community, their rapid ascent raising both curiosity and suspicion. Yet their capabilities remained largely unknown. The human diplomat rose, their movements deliberate and measured. "Thalzar emissary," they began, their voice steady, "your history is well documented. Conquest and subjugation are your hallmarks. But humanity does not measure strength as you do." The Thalzar emissary's scaled lips curled into what could only be described as a sneer. "And how do you measure it, fragile one? With your primitive tools. Your quaint machines. Strength is what we define, and we challenge you to prove otherwise." The diplomat held the emissary's gaze. "You challenge us to a test of strength, but we propose a different measure. Not through brute force, but through history." The room fell silent, the weight of the statement hanging in the air. The Thalzar emissary tilted their head, bemused. "History? What use are the past's ashes in the face of present power?" "More than you might think," the diplomat replied. "We accept your challenge, but on our terms. A demonstration of historical insight, of lessons learned and applied. You are the strongest, are you not? Surely you are not afraid to face a contest of the mind." The emissary's expression darkened. For the Thalzar, to refuse would be seen as cowardice, a blow to their pride. After a moment of tense silence, they nodded sharply. "So be it. We will humor your test. But when your history fails you, remember this moment. Remember the folly of your kind." The human diplomat inclined their head in acknowledgement. "We will meet in the agreed arena, with the galaxy as witness. And when this is over, it is not humanity who will question the meaning of strength." As the assembly adjourned, whispers and speculations filled the air. The stakes were clear: to decline would have marked humanity as weak and vulnerable. To accept risked annihilation if the Thalzar decided to retaliate for perceived insult. Humanity's reputation, perhaps its very survival, now hinged on this unconventional battle. Behind the calm demeanor of the diplomat, there was a deeper resolve. Humanity's history was long, filled with triumphs, tragedies, and the hard-won wisdom of countless conflicts. They had faced enemies who seemed insurmountable before, foes who underestimated the resilience and resourcefulness of a species shaped by the unforgiving crucible of their own planet. Walking away from the central floor, the diplomat passed a holographic display that projected Earth's position within the galactic map. A faint smile crossed their face, almost imperceptible. They had seen the Thalzar's kind before, not in scale or form, but in essence. They knew how this battle would be won. And in the quiet of that smile lay a promise: the Thalzar were about to learn what it truly meant to face humanity. In a secured chamber aboard a neutral station orbiting a distant star, humanity's finest minds gathered. The room buzzed with urgency, a stark contrast to the unyielding calm of the Galactic Assembly. Historians, philosophers, strategists, and psychologists, all experts in their fields, sat around a circular table, their faces etched with a mix of determination and doubt. "We've faced challenges before," said Dr. Elena Greaves, historian with an encyclopedic knowledge of Earth's empires. Her voice was steady, though the weight of the stakes pressed heavily on her. "But never like this. A species that values strength above all else won't be swayed easily by stories from our past." "It's not just about stories," interjected Commander Idris Mahmoud, a former military strategist. "It's about showing them what strength truly means. Our history isn't just a series of battles, it's a testament to survival, innovation, and growth. That's what we need to convey." "But will they listen?" asked Dr. Rao, a psychologist with a deep understanding of cross-species diplomacy. "The Thalzar see the world in binaries: conquer or be conquered. Persuading them to view history as anything but a weakness will require more than facts. We need to dismantle their worldview, piece by piece." The debate intensified as the team began selecting key moments from humanity's history. Each proposal sparked discussion, sometimes heated, as they tried to balance the need for impact with the depth of the lessons. "The unification of warring tribes," Greaves suggested. "Show them how cooperation, even among rivals, can lead to strength greater than any one faction alone. The early alliances on Earth, whether tribal confederations or national coalitions, set the foundation for progress. We also need examples of overcoming technological inferiority," Mahmoud added. "The Battle of Agincourt, the guerrilla tactics during colonial uprisings, or the way resistance movements outlasted invaders who underestimated them. The Thalzar need to see that brute strength isn't invincible. And don't forget the Cold War," Rao said. "It's the ultimate example of restraint as a form of strength. Two superpowers, armed to the teeth, refraining from annihilation because they understood the cost of escalation. If we can make them grasp the concept of mutually assured destruction, it might plant seeds of doubt about their reliance on war." Yet not everyone was convinced. Dr. Caleb Voss, a cultural anthropologist, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "This could backfire. What if they see our history as weakness? Our conflicts, our scars, they might interpret them as proof of humanity's fragility." "They might," the diplomat said, their voice calm but firm, silencing the murmurs. "But history isn't just a catalogue of defeats and victories. It's a mirror, showing us who we are and who we could be. That's what sets us apart from the Thalzar. They haven't learned from their past, they've only repeated it. If we can make them see the futility of their cycle, we win." As the team continued their preparations, glimpses of Thalzar culture loomed large in their discussions. Reports from intelligence operatives painted a picture of a society where strength dictated every facet of life. Their art glorified conquest, their leaders were warriors first, thinkers second. Reflection was seen as a luxury, if not a weakness. "They see history as static," Rao observed. "A list of victories etched in stone. They've never considered the lessons it might hold because they've never had to face true adversity. To them, war has always been a tool, not a trial. And that's where we have the advantage," Mahmoud said. "Our history is full of adversity. We've faced extinction, division, and devastation. But we've learned. We've adapted. The Thalzar have no concept of that because they've never needed it, until now." The room grew quiet, the weight of the task settling over them. The diplomat stood, their expression unreadable but their voice filled with quiet conviction. "This isn't just about surviving a challenge. It's about showing them who we are. The Thalzar believe strength lies in the ability to dominate, but we'll show them that true strength lies in understanding the cost of domination. They've never been forced to confront the consequences of their actions. By the time we're done, they will. The team nodded, their resolve solidifying. Each member knew the gravity of the moment, the responsibility they bore not just for themselves, but for humanity as a whole. They weren't just presenting history, they were shaping it. As the final selections were made, the team worked late into the night, refining their arguments and preparing the holographic presentations that would bring humanity's past to life. Every story, every image, every word was chosen with care, designed to provoke, to challenge, and to inspire. In the end, it was more than a strategy. It was a declaration. Humanity's history was not a weakness to be hidden but a weapon to be wielded. And with it, they would face the Thalzar not as prey, but as equals. The arena hummed with a low vibration, its walls shimmering as the holographic display activated. Delegates from across the galaxy observed in silence, their forms bathed in the shifting light of projected images. At the center stood humanity's diplomat, calm and collected, facing the Thalzar emissary. The Thalzar loomed imposingly, their scaled arms crossed, a faint air of derision in their posture. With a gesture, the diplomat activated the display. The image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly, its continents marked by the rise and fall of empires. "This is where we begin," the diplomat said, their voice steady. "Human history is one of cycles. Empires rise, thrive, and fall. Each has left its mark, but none have endured unchanged." The holographic image shifted, depicting the grandeur of ancient Rome. Towers of marble gleamed in the sunlight, roads stretched far into the horizon, and legions marched in perfect formation. Rome, the diplomat began. It rose through conquest and discipline, shaping the foundation of laws and governance for centuries to come. But it fell, not to brute strength alone, but to internal decay, overstretched ambition, and the unwillingness to adapt. The scene dissolved into the sweeping steppes of Asia. Galloping riders appeared, their bows firing with deadly precision. The Mongol Empire, the diplomat continued. A force of unmatched mobility and strategy, conquering vast swaths of the known world. Yet, it too fragmented, unable to hold together the lands it had claimed. Finally, the projection shifted to the sun-dappled seas of the 19th century, showing ships flying the Union Jack. The British Empire, they said. At its height, it controlled nearly a quarter of the Earth's landmass. But even it could not withstand the pressures of rebellion, changing times, and the cost of maintaining dominance. The diplomat paused, letting the weight of the example settle. What these empires shared was their reliance on conquest to sustain themselves. They sought to impose their strength upon others, but in doing so, they became vulnerable to their own hubris. The Thalzar emissaries' eyes narrowed, their tail flicking in annoyance. And yet humanity survived, they growled. What of it? What lesson are we to take from the failure of your so-called great powers? Survival, the diplomat replied. Empires fell, but humanity endured. We adapted, absorbed, and evolved. We exchanged knowledge, mingled cultures, and reshaped ourselves. Power through conquest is fleeting, strength through understanding endures. The Thalzar emissary's lips curled into a sneer. Convenient words from a species too weak to hold on to its empires. The Thalzar have ruled for millennia. Our strength is absolute. Is it? The diplomat asked, their tone calm but piercing. What happens when strength meets a force it cannot crush? When the weak find ways to resist the strong? With another gesture, the display shifted. It showed guerrilla fighters in the dense jungles of Vietnam, their movements silent and strategic as they harried a technologically superior foe. This is the lesson of asymmetric resistance. The weak do not fight on the terms of the strong. They adapt, striking where they are least expected, enduring where the strong falter. The projection changed again, showing ragged revolutionaries standing against organized armies, from the American colonies to modern resistance movements. From guerrilla tactics to revolutions, humanity has shown that even the mightiest forces can be brought low when they underestimate the resolve of those they oppress. The Thalzar emissaries' expression grew darker. These are isolated incidents, they said. Your history is riddled with conflict and loss. It proves only your species' chaos, not your strength. The diplomat stepped forward, meeting the emissaries' gaze directly. Our history is not chaos, it is a crucible. Each conflict has shaped us, each failure has taught us. And the lesson we learned is simple: brute strength is not enough. It never has been. The air in the arena grew tense as the holograms shifted once more, showing the aftermath of war. Cities reduced to rubble, soldiers and civilians alike bearing scars, and the rebuilding that followed. Every time we fell, we rebuilt. Stronger, wiser. We learned from our mistakes, from the mistakes of those before us. Can the same be said for you? The Thalzar emissaries' jaw tightened, their tail flicking sharply behind them. Whispers rippled through the observing delegates, the weight of the argument beginning to seep into the air. And what would you have us learn from this? The emissary demanded, their voice cutting through the growing murmurs. That you are resilient. That you cling to survival like insects in the dirt. We are beyond such frailties. You believe that, the diplomat replied, unshaken. But belief is not truth. History has a way of humbling those who think themselves invincible. You've seen the rise of empires, but have you prepared for their fall? For a moment, the emissary was silent, their eyes narrowing as if searching for a weakness in the diplomat's words. Around them, the delegates watched intently, the tension in the room palpable. As the holograms faded, the diplomat stepped back, their voice carrying an almost eerie calm. This is only the beginning. There is more to see, more to learn. The question is, will you choose to see it, or will you close your eyes and fall into the same trap as those before you? The challenge hung in the air, unanswered. The arena darkened, and the hum of the holographic display returned. This time, the images were stark, raw, and unflinching. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky, its devastating bloom frozen in time. Beneath it, the ruins of Hiroshima stretched out, a silent testament to humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. The diplomat's voice was calm but carried a gravity that silenced even the faintest whisper. This is the legacy of unchecked aggression. This is what happens when the pursuit of power knows no limits. The scene shifted to tense moments from the Cold War. Leaders sat across negotiating tables, their faces etched with fear and resolve. Missiles on both sides of the globe stood poised for launch, the planet teetering on the edge of annihilation. The Cuban Missile Crisis, the diplomat explained. The closest humanity ever came to destroying itself. A single misstep, a single moment of pride or arrogance, and we would not be standing here today. Images of peace marches, disarmament talks, and treaties flashed next. But we learned. Not through conquest, not through strength, but through the realization that mutual destruction is not victory, it is obliteration. We learned that no war is worth the price of extinction. The Thalzar emissary's expression betrayed the faintest flicker of unease. You show us your weakness, they growled, though their tone lacked conviction. The fear that paralyzed your kind. Not weakness, the diplomat countered, their gaze piercing. Wisdom. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. We learned that acceptable losses are a myth, a lie that leaders tell themselves to justify destruction. Can you claim to have learned the same? The Thalzar delegation exchanged glances, the first signs of doubt creeping into their previously united front. Whispers rippled among the observing delegates. The galaxy, long awed by the Thalzar's power, was witnessing something unprecedented: hesitation. The holograms shifted again, this time to the trenches of World War I, mud, barbed wire, and endless lines of soldiers facing unthinkable conditions. The Great War, the diplomat began. A conflict that consumed millions of lives. Empires bled themselves dry, chasing victories that left their nations broken. The scene transitioned to the bombed-out cities of World War II. Stalingrad, Dresden, and the aftermath of the Holocaust unfolded in harrowing detail. And yet we didn't learn. We repeated the cycle, believing that domination would bring peace. It didn't. It never has. The diplomats stepped forward, their voice rising with quiet intensity. The cost of victory was too high. Cities reduced to rubble. Generations scarred. Lives lost for lines on a map. And in the end, what did we gain? It wasn't until we chose cooperation, when former enemies rebuilt together, that progress truly began. The Thalzar emissary's tail lashed behind them, a sign of mounting frustration. You speak of rebuilding and cooperation, but your history is drenched in blood. What value is there in your lessons if they are born from failure? Because failure is the greatest teacher, the diplomat replied without hesitation. Humanity's resilience doesn't come from perfection, it comes from the ability to rise after every fall. Each scar, each loss, taught us what strength truly means. Can you say the same for your kind? The arena grew tense as the Thalzar emissary shifted uncomfortably. The holograms changed again, this time showing scenes of ingenuity in unity, the moon landing, the establishment of the United Nations, the global response to pandemics. Our strength lies not just in survival but in what we build together. We've faced the brink of destruction, and we've chosen to step back, to change course. Have you? The tension in the room was palpable. Among the Thalzar delegation, subtle signs of discord began to emerge. Their leaders exchanged hushed words, their body language betraying cracks in their confidence. Some appeared to bristle at the implications of humanity's lesson, others seemed troubled, their eyes flickering with unspoken doubts. The diplomat seized the moment, their voice ringing with conviction. If we, as fragile beings of flesh and bone, survived and thrived through endless conflict, what makes you think you can escape history's judgment? Your strength is not eternal. Your empire is not immune to the forces that have shaped the rise and fall of countless others. The words hung in the air, heavy and inescapable. The Thalzar emissary opened their mouth to speak, then hesitated. For the first time, their imposing presence seemed less certain, less invincible. The observing delegates watched intently, their expressions ranging from awe to apprehension. Humanity had laid bare its history, its scars, and its triumphs, turning what many considered weakness into undeniable strength. And in doing so, they had shaken the foundation of the Thalzar's worldview. The diplomat took a step back, their final words echoing in the hushed arena. This is the lesson of history: strength is not measured by the ability to conquer but by the wisdom to choose a better path. The question now is whether you are strong enough to learn it. The air in the arena was heavy, charged with anticipation as the holographic display flickered once more. This time, the images were quieter, less violent, yet no less powerful. Rebuilding efforts after wars, communities coming together, hands lifting beams to reconstruct homes, children playing amidst the ruins of once great cities. The diplomat's voice was soft, but its gravity resonated throughout the chamber. War's true cost is never counted solely in lives lost on the battlefield. It lingers in the rubble of cities, in the futures that could have been, in the scars we carry as individuals and as civilizations. The images shifted to Einstein scribbling equations, to the quiet resolve of peace treaties signed after unimaginable losses. This is the lesson we bring to you: the price of unchecked aggression is more than a loss of strength. It is the loss of potential, of what could be if we choose another path. The Thalzar emissaries' rigid composure faltered. Behind them, their leaders exchanged hushed, intense words. It was clear that unity among the Thalzar was beginning to crack. One of them, younger and less imposing than the others, stepped forward. Their voice, though firm, lacked the bravado of their elder. You speak as if strength is irrelevant. Yet strength is what ensures survival. Strength has its place, the diplomat replied, meeting their gaze. But survival is hollow without purpose, without progress. Your kind seeks to conquer, to dominate, but have you ever stopped to ask why? What is the endgame of strength if it leads only to isolation, to stagnation? The greatest strength lies in the ability to endure, to grow, and to uplift others. The younger Thalzar fell silent, their expression contemplative. The murmurs among their delegation grew louder, split between those clinging to their belief in brute power and those questioning the path they had long followed. The diplomat took a step forward, their voice steady yet filled with a quiet passion. We do not seek to diminish you, nor to claim moral superiority. We come with an offer, not a threat. We have learned, often the hard way, that collaboration brings greater strength than conquest ever could. Together, we can share knowledge, build a future where the strong protect rather than destroy, and where all can thrive. A wave of silence followed. The Thalzar emissary turned to their peers, their expression unreadable. Heated debate erupted among their ranks. Some leaders argued vehemently, their words sharp and defiant. Others, including the younger leader, gestured with a tone of caution, their voices calm but resolute. Finally, the emissary faced the diplomat, their towering forms seeming less imposing now. You propose an alliance, they said, their voice measured, but alliances are built on trust. Why should we trust a species with a history as bloody as yours? The diplomat allowed a faint smile, one tinged with both humility and resolve. Because we have no illusions about our past. It is precisely because of our failures that we understand the value of trust and cooperation. We do not seek to erase history but to learn from it, together. The emissary studied the diplomat for a long moment, the weight of the decision reflected in their stance. Finally, they inclined their head. We will consider your words. For now, we withdraw our challenge. Perhaps there is more to learn from your kind than we believed. The murmurs among the Galactic Assembly swelled, a mixture of shock and cautious optimism. Humanity, against all odds, had stood its ground not through force, but through the power of its ideas, its scars, and its hope. As the Thalzar delegation departed, the human team gathered, the tension slowly giving way to relief. Some exchanged smiles, others sat quietly, reflecting on the weight of what had just occurred. One of the historians, a middle-aged woman with a weary expression, spoke softly. We've given them a choice. But choices have consequences, and understanding takes time. The diplomat, still composed, nodded. True. But this was never about a single moment. It's about planting a seed. What they do with it is up to them. As the Galactic Assembly began to disperse, the human diplomat turned to the observing delegates. Let this be the beginning of something new, not just for humanity and the Thalzar, but for all of us. The strongest species is not the one that conquers, but the one that endures, that learns, and that helps others to rise. The delegates murmured in agreement, their expressions thoughtful. For humanity, the victory was not in forcing submission, but in proving that strength could be wielded with wisdom and compassion. As the human team prepared to leave, one of the younger members, a bright-eyed linguist, whispered to the diplomat, "Do you think they'll really change?" The diplomat's gaze lingered on the now empty space where the Thalzar had stood. Change is never certain, they said. But hope is where it begins. The arena dimmed, the echoes of history fading into the vast expanse of the galaxy. Humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun, but they had taken their first step not as conquerors, but as bearers of a hard-won lesson, that the future is built not on strength alone, but on the enduring power of understanding, cooperation, and hope.